Coming up next on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
The business which I started many, many years ago, which I sold out of in 2012, we actually did all the pioneering of the outer islands and destinations. And that business came to abrupt halt when we actually had one of our boats taken by pirates. But they took the boat and they took the crew of 8, and they took them and they had the crew for 79 days in Somalia. And they eventually burnt the ship, and that closed our business.
That was Keith Rosinas with his first pirate story. Heading back to the Seychelles today on the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how you doing today? Thanks for stopping by the show. If you've been enjoying this podcast and want to show your support, one way to do that is to click over to any of our sponsors' websites and check in with them there. And one of those sponsors is FishHound Expeditions. FishHound puts together remote Alaskan float trips to get you in the middle of Alaska to get the full experience. This is that experience you've been dreaming about, mousing for trout, stripping for coho, char, etc., etc. It's the way to do it in remote Alaska on a river trip. Head over to wetflyswing.com/fishhound to find out more. That's FISHHOUND. We are also sponsored by LakeLady Rods, building distinctive custom rods, each created one at a time to the exact specifications for each angler. I just got back from a stillwater trip to Kamloops and had the 4-weight out with a sinking line using that clear camo. The thing was casting like a dream. This thing is really nice. I can't even explain how Chris does it, but it's very unique and very nice to cast. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/LakeLady right now, LakeLady, to support this podcast and a great rod builder. Keith Rosinas shares his story of fishing some of the greatest destinations around the world. We find out how it all got started out of South Africa and how he stepped up to build a guiding business around one of the most sought-after destinations around the world. I know you're going to enjoy this one, so this one has a little tips, a little tricks, and a decent amount of history, including the connection of Keith and I with the last name. I think we might actually have some family connection, so stay tuned for that one. So without further ado, here he is, Keith Rosinas from Alphonse Fishing Company. How's it going, Keith?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking a little time to put this together. I know you've done a number of these podcasts. I always love to check in on that first, on the podcasting space. We're going to talk a little about that. Do you have any idea how many podcast episodes you've done with other shows?
No idea, because I enjoy them so much.
Good. Well, I'm going to try and keep this interesting and maybe ask you a few questions you haven't been asked before. So that'll be the goal here. But you've obviously, the Seychelles is a huge name, even for people that maybe will never get there. You hear a lot about it, how amazing it is. So we're going to dig into a little bit of that and talk about some of the species there. But take us back. I know you had your connection to your grandfather and your, a long history in fly fishing. Just take us back to how you first got into it, and then we'll jump into how Alphonse Fishing got going.
Yeah, so I've always fly fished. My grandfather was a big fly fisherman and fly tyer, so he taught me all the traits of fly fishing. Basically started fishing for trout in my younger days at the age of 5 or 6 up in Troutbeck in Rhodesia, and then obviously also in South Africa, Gubu Dam and those kind of areas. And then sort of evolved into saltwater. Obviously we've got a sea here in South Africa. We're surrounded by a sea. So it was in its infant stages of fly fishing in the salt, but we had a go at it. And obviously, as you progress in that lust for, as a youngster, for broader places, and more diverse and wild places, different species, sort of led me on to the Seychelles. Now, I was very fortunate to get to the Seychelles. My father took me there, and obviously once there, you realize what an amazing place it is. But it did take time. There was a light bulb moment when I'd been there and I'd gone back and fished other places around the world and realized that the Seychelles is the place. So yeah, it's a long story. I hope you guys have got some time, and I can touch on it when you would like me to.
Yeah, no, that's good. We'll probably dig into a little more of that as we go. I'm curious on the trout fishing. So take us to South Africa. What does that look like? How is trout fishing there different from, say, trout? And I'm not sure. Are you talking rainbow trout?
We have rainbows and browns. So there's some stream and river areas closer to Johannesburg, which is where I'm currently now. But obviously, there's also a lot of lakes on the higher areas, Drakensberg and those kind of areas. Obviously, trout are all stocked. They're all stocked into South Africa, and they become residents here. We get big trout. We've got beautiful big lakes, crystal clear, but we've also got really nice big rivers as well as coming out of the Lesotho and those kind of places. I would say that my most favorable fishing at the moment for trout would be in Lesotho, which is a country which is surrounded by South Africa. It's a mountain kingdom, and some great fishing out there. In those rivers, you also get yellowfish as well. So some rivers you'll be able to catch rainbows, browns, and yellowfish. There are some great fisheries here in South Africa.
No, it's cool. And I'm glad you mentioned the yellowfish. So remind me. So how do you spell that country that's surrounded by South Africa?
Lesotho, Lesotho, I think. Lesotho. I think it's spelled like
gotcha.
that.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. So this is kind of like sounds like a natural area in the middle of South Africa. What is that? I know you have a big conservation, that's a big part of what you do. What does that look like in actually the mainland of South Africa and around, is that a big, is conservation a topic out there?
Yeah, conservation is all around us. Obviously, we've got some amazing game and wildlife. So most your conservation is obviously focused on animals, and there needs to be a lot more focus on the rivers and the dams and the fish, because obviously there's a lot of areas or rivers running through informal settlements. South Africa has obviously had a lot of mining in the past, very 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 rich in gold and also some minerals. So a lot of those rivers have been polluted to the extent where there's no more fish in them. So I don't know if we will ever get to a stage of rehabilitation on some of the rivers, but I do know down in the Natal area, which is a coastal area, there's some stuff happening on the rivers. So hopefully we'll be able to highlight the fact that a lot of these rivers can be rehabilitated and we can focus on them. But at the moment I'm focusing all my effort on the Seychelles. We have all our operations there. All the islands are exclusive in a sense where there's only one lodge or hotel on each one of the outer islands. So we have the ability to form foundations and sort of conservation arms with conservationists and do all the monitoring and conservation programs through fundraising and so forth. So a lot easier there. Whereas here in obviously in South Africa, a river flows through many different townships and informal areas and cities and towns. And it's very hard to sort of, obviously create a positive impact on those kind of rivers. But there is hope for the future, I suppose.
Yeah, I got you. So you're in the Seychelles, and you've been there like what now? How long have you been in the Seychelles, basically working, guiding out there?
So I've been going to Seychelles for about 25 years. I think I've been guiding there for about around over 23 years. I did 17 years straight where I did Seychelles, either Russia or African destinations guiding back-to-back seasons. And then I hung up my boots and unfortunately I had to anchor myself in my office and start building a business for the future. So most of my time is spent in the office now, unfortunately, but I do fish a hell of a lot.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, describe the Seychelles really quick, just for, you hear a lot about it, you see photos, pictures, stuff like that. But what makes it so special compared to maybe some other saltwater experiences? Yeah,
so a lot of people sort of get confused with, Seychelles in the sense where, they're granitic islands, where, the inner islands are all granitic. So they have large mountains, big black mountains, granitic mountains that come out of the sea kind of thing. Whereas when you move away from the main islands where our destinations start, our closest one being about an hour in a plane, it is coral atolls. So it's very different to other places around the world. So, many millions of years ago, there would have been a volcano, and obviously the matter of the volcano is heavier than the sea matter. and slowly it would have sunk into the seabed. But as it was sinking into the seabed and the tip of the volcano sort of submerged, the coral would keep growing towards the sun. And you'd get the coral would grow up, and then obviously you'd get deposits from the currents that would form on top of that coral, and that will create the atolls. So a lot of these places have got lagoons. Some of them don't have lagoons where half the atoll is fallen away, and it's just sort of a half moon shaped island or atoll. Whereas a lot of them have got enclosed lagoons. And the beauty about them is that, on each one of these sort of atolls, you can have numerous islands. For instance, Alphonse group of atolls, there was 3 atolls very close to each other. They basically have a 1 mile channel between them, kind of thing. So from Alphonse, it's the only atoll which we have a hotel on and a fishing operation, and we run from there to St. Francois, which takes us about 25 minutes. In a fast boat, or actually 15 minutes in a fast boat and 25 minutes in a slow boat, and you're fishing an atoll which has never been inhabited. And right next to it is another atoll. So you have all these amazing experiences. For instance, Cosmolido is an atoll and has about 20 islands, 20 small islands. So you have this one atoll where we've got a eco lodge on the point of the main island, and then we go out and fish all these other areas in the lagoon, 30 kilometers across the lagoon, fishing beautiful islands which I've never seen humans or never had humans inhabit them, and really wild and beautiful.
Wow. So the atoll is essentially historically it was a volcano that collapsed that created that. Is that correct?
That's correct, John. They're labeled coral atolls.
Coral, yeah. So it's coral. So the life is, and that's what makes them so diverse. That's why they're known as, even that area might be known as the most diverse aquatic area maybe on the planet, something like that.
So there was a survey done with it's called the Norton survey, which was done with a ship which had 2 or Nexon, something like that, something along those lines, had 2 submarines, and they actually declared it a Stove Cosmolido area as the most marine diverse area in the world. There
you go. So it is, and you see it. When you're out there, and I guess part of that is the obviously the fly fishing, which we're going to talk about today, but you must just see numerous species of plants, animals, birds. It's just kind of like, is it pretty amazing?
Well, the thing is that, in the early days, it was always about chasing fish and, about catching as many fish as you can, kind of thing, for yourself and for the clients. In old days, when I first came out, I fished, and then, obviously evolved into the guiding side of things. But, when you used to come out to these places, you always walked on the flats and you saw these amazing things and encounters, birds, sharks, turtles, all sorts of animals and fish. And you always thought, geez, I wonder if a ecotourism oriented person or a leisure person would enjoy it. So, over the years, it's kind of evolved from just being a fishing oriented, fly fishing oriented business to a business which has actually grown, and we actually bring more people to the Seychelles to do ecotourism and leisure oriented stuff than we do fly fishing. And the beauty about that is that by being able to do that is you take the focus away from putting too much. You put the focus on putting too much pressure on the flats and the fisheries, and you're able to rest them by creating revenue on the other side.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is that's kind of how, business should work, right? You've evolved it from the start of focus. So when you started, you were really focused all fly fishing, and now it's evolved into where now it's fly fishing is even secondary to other just ecotourism.
Yeah, fly fishing is our most important aspect because I love it so much. But we've taken our foot off the pedal with regards to trying to reduce the amount of rods that we put at each destination and increase the ecotourism, and then that way it's obviously more sustainable for the future. We've got a lot of work to do with regards to that kind of role. Obviously, with the more destinations that we have, we're able to spread the load a lot better.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, let's. People are here today to hear about fishing. I want to hear about it all, so we'll probably circle back around to some of this other stuff. But let's dig into the fly fishing a little bit. So, what are species wise? What's the big species people are coming? Is there one that people really go up there for, or is it just a multiple?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, a lot of people come to Seychelles either for mass amount of bonefish and the incredible amounts of bonefish that you can catch in some of the destinations all day long. But obviously one of the big draw cards is the giant Trevally, the ferocious giant Trevally. But once people come out, a lot of people get hooked to them and they want to catch giant Trevally all day long, kind of thing. And it is because it is addictive. Yeah. But once you get there and you see all the other species that around you, when you're fishing for the giant Trevally, you're often in areas where there's bonefish. So you have big bonefish swimming around, and with obviously swimming amongst the bonefish, you'll often see permit. And then when you go up onto the pancake coral ridges, or we call them pancake flats, you're obviously the tailing triggerfish. And then amongst those areas in the channels, you'll see the milkfish feeding, or on the flats you'll see the milkfish feeding. So it's almost like the guys get drawn out there by catching bonefish or by catching GTs, but once they're there, they get hooked on all the rest. The Indo-Pacific permit is exactly the same as the Atlantic permit. It's difficult. They are difficult. They wave their tail at you, stick their little fin up in the same way. It's just an amazing experience, So the beauty about the Seychelles is obviously it's the crystal clear water, And if you like wading, you can wade on white flats, white hard flats. We don't have flats where you end up sinking up into your thighs, and you're trying to roll around in your stomach to try and get back the skiff kind of thing. We don't get that. So it really is amazing. And the beauty is that we have everything for everybody, stuff for beginners. If they, after when you catch bonefish, get the eye and catch as many bonefish as possible, we have that. But then if you want to go and get more technical fish, like permit and so forth, you get plenty of shots. All the different destinations are unique. Some better for permits, some better for GTs. And that's how we sell them or try and market them.
Gotcha. What is the one, if you're to go out there, the one that really gets you fired up now, if you're to go out there and fish for them, if you had to pick one?
For me, it's difficult because I'm kind of someone who prefers to walk around and just catch whatever comes my way and sort of pick the fish and then sort of, if it looks like an interesting fish or a bigger fish or in a difficult situation, whatever, I'll have a go at it. But over the years, we've really worked hard on the Indo-Pacific permit. In the beginning, they were almost like a no-go kind of thing. We just couldn't catch them. And also, I think that the numbers of Indo-Pacific permit, because in the old days, they would have been netted because they obviously have fish with swimmers' rounds on the nets, and it probably would have been a fish that people would have eaten. Whereas bonefish, I don't think they would have eaten. So I don't know if it's just the seawater temperatures that have changed or what's changed, but the Indo-Pacific permit fishing numbers have definitely increased. So we've seen a lot more of them. And about 5 years ago, we also evolved and managed to tweak a lot of different things on the flexo crab to create the Alflexo, which is a small version, which is really, really realistic. And it's given us an opportunity to really target them because they eat them. They like them. So it's gone from the fish of 1,000 casts to the fish of probably like 100 casts now. So, so we've got them dialed in and we're enjoying them. And, some destinations in the past, you wouldn't even fish them because you would fish, at permit all day and you wouldn't catch one for a month. And now we sort of got them dialed in where we catch them, one trip has just finished to Providence on board our catamaran called Q Vardas, where the guests, American guests, ended on 17 in the Pacific permit for the week. So we really got it dialed in, and it's something that and those guests they loved it so much they booked and ready to come back again. So exactly. It's really amazing. There's something unique about staying on a catamaran.
Right.
4 guests on a catamaran with skiffs in tow, or and then going on to a series of different islands, moving around between islands and fishing for Indo-Pacific permit, tailing on foot, tailing fish. So we have got so many different products. It really is an amazing fishery.
Yeah, that is cool. That sounds amazing. When you talk about the catamaran, so this is and how big? These are big catamarans. How many feet? How big are these boats?
So the boat which we target our Indo-Pacific permit in the Amarantis chain is a 75-footer. and we can load our boats on board, and we can, it's got some top end as well, so we can travel like 16 knots. It's really comfortable and luxurious in a sense. So the guys really enjoy it.
That's sweet. So you got this luxurious, this catamaran that's out there, and well, let's just dig into the permit. This is pretty interesting because you talk about how back in the day you could barely catch them, and now you're catching them, and you said, different patterns, things like that. What is the big difference if you think back before where it was taking you 1,000 casts, and now it's 100? What is the big difference?
Very simple. It's the Alphonse, the creation of this new fly that we've evolved and really, really sort of focused on getting it exactly right.
How do you spell that?
It's Alphonse.
Yeah, Flexer. F-L-E-X.
Yeah, Flexer. Yeah, Flex. PH though, not F.
Oh, PH. Yeah, Flexer. Yeah.
So
it says fly. So that goes against the general rule. And fly fishing, it's pretty funny because everybody says lots of different species. The fly isn't as important as the cast and everything. But really, with this permit, you're saying fly is the most important thing.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And also the way we fish them. So in the past, you would kind of lay it up and you put a crab pattern out there, and you'd as he came towards it, you would sort of twitch. Whereas with this fly, we kind of fish him a lot faster. So you'd get it to an area where you think he's seen it, you'd move it away from him immediately. So you get him to try and chase it. And once he's dialed on that fly and he's coming straight back towards you, he can't see the leader. All he can see is that fly. And then we generally speed up, but then give him a little bit of time just to eat that fly, and then he'll be on. So yeah, it's a combination of everything. So you got the right fly, you got the confidence. If you got the confidence, you can fish him in various different ways. Yeah. And if you got the confidence, you can make that fly, that cast count, versus trying to overthink it and lay it up too far away, snagging the bottom and so forth. Yeah. So it's all about the confidence. With permanent, it's about confidence.
Yeah. And do you think the technique you're doing there with that fly and the fast twitch, does that work for permit all around the world?
Yeah, it's not really a twitch. It's actually a slow and steady strip.
Oh, slow and steady.
So keeping their fly moving away from them. In the past we used to twitch it, and thinking that maybe they think it's a little crab, they'll come after it, but no, they don't want it. There's a little bit of jack in them, so they like to chase
slow and steady. So it's just like a long strip, and just keep long strips.
And in trying to get back onto the strip as quick as possible, because often within the Pacific permit you feel a bump, it's too late. He's already eaten it and spat it out. They inhale it, they don't eat it. So.
Oh right. So how do you know when to do the set?
So generally, when you're stripping those long, slow strips, not too slow, hey. So you'll feel a little bit of pressure. If you feel a little bit of pressure, I'll set straight away, because generally it'll be inside its throat almost. If you feel the bump, it's too late. It's already out.
Yeah, right. This is cool. So, and talk a little bit about just the kind of the fly line you're using in the gear real quick. What's that look like?
Yeah, so we're using either 8 or 9 weight rods. Now I've gone back to 8 weight, and simply because you can, when you're fishing at 8 weight, the line lands lighter because it's softer, because it's lighter. And I've gone away from 9 weight, because in the past, obviously a 9 weight was a combination rod where you would fish for triggers and bonefish and in the Pacific permit with. Now what we generally do is we kind of fish 2 rods. So we'll have an 8 weight with a crab for a permit, and we'll have a 9 weight if we're going to fish for triggers and so forth. So it's quite important that you don't fish something that's too heavy. Also in the past, the guys would fish 10 weight lines, but I believe that's too heavy. It lands too hard on the water. You're already casting a heavy fly or a big crab pattern at them. So try and get as much splash away from them as possible. I fish light leaders. For in the Pacific permit, I'm fishing 15-pound. Well, it's not so light, but it's light enough. Something that's really small diameter, fluorocarbon, long leader, 12 foot if you can. And just straight floating lines. That's the way. Just straight floating. You don't need anything simple.
And you're in pretty shallow. Like, how deep is the deepest you're fishing?
So, if you're going to fish them as really deep, it'll probably be around thigh height, thigh depth. That's when the tide's pushed in, and they're on the apex, or around waist deep maximum. But generally, you're fishing them knee and above the knee, and that's the perfect height. They're very comfortable in that depth of water.
Gotcha. And you guys are just from going back to the catamaran, so you got your boats, you pop off, you got the little skiffs or whatever you use, and then you guys head out to a different atoll and then spend the day there. Is that how it works? And then meet back? Or are you fishing out of the boat, or you get going on shore?
Yeah, so we generally plan our week or 10 days, whatever amount of time the guests are with us, according to the tides. So certain atolls will fish on the foster tides, in the spring tides, and certain atolls will fish on the neap tides. Generally your spring tide destinations, you would be fishing inside a lagoon. So something that has atoll which has a nice lagoon, and you'll go in on the high tide, and then obviously as the tide gets lower, you're stuck inside the lagoon if there's no entrance, and then you'll come back out in the high tide again. Those kind of atolls work really, really well for permanent on spring tides. Generally a lot more white sand and so forth. But then on the neap tides, we generally target the destinations which are more broken vulcanized coral orientated, like storm ridges and so forth, where those permanent are coming up on the flat and they sort of tailing on the broken coral. It's generally a little more difficult to catch as well, and that's on foot. But what we often do is, in those kind of places, is we'll get into position to the area with our skiff, and then as it gets very, very skinny, we'll let the skiff run dry, and then we'll go on foot. Whereas on the destination we have the spring tides, we like to keep the boats close to us, so we catch them on the pole, poling. But if you want to catch them on foot, you can catch them all on foot. It's just a matter of poling along, finding a pot of fish or a fish, and you can jump off the skiff and walk up and have a go.
This episode is sponsored by Trxstle with their CRC system. It provides secure, convenient storage for your fully rigged fly rods with unsurpassed gear protection. Every CRC system comes with a secure mounting clamp system, padding in the reel compartment, and their proprietary rod liner suspension system. This is a very a pain point for a lot of us. Your hook gets stuck in there and you can't get it out. That's definitely a pain. So they figured that one out. And it's all about making it easier and faster to get on the water and having your rod fully rigged, whether you're on the salt water, whether you're in California, Colorado, New York. It doesn't really matter. If you want your rod to be ready to go, the CRC system will do that, whether on top of your rod, on top of your rig, on the side, or in the back of your car. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/Trxstle right now to get started. TRXSTLE. You support this podcast by clicking over through that link to Trxstle. Okay, back to the show. So good. So I think we got a little bit of a little perspective on it. We had a few questions here from listeners, and one was on knots. I'm just curious, when you're setting these things up, what does that look like for your knots? What type of knots? Give us it sounds like it's pretty straightforward, just a long leader, but break that down a little bit.
Are you talking about for Indo-Pacific permit, or are you talking about?
Yeah. If we just stick for permit, maybe let's start with permit. Just start with permit, and then we'll go in general.
Yeah. So permit. We obviously using your standard floating line. I use Cortland lines, and they've got obviously braided, so they've got welded loops on the end, so it's nice and simple. I like to do a twisted leader or a ferrule leader, whatever you want to call it. So I'll basically take sort of 3 full lengths of my outstretched arms of 15 pound. I twist it back on itself to about halfway, and then what I do is I do a perfection, which is it's kind of difficult to do. I haven't seen anyone else do it, where you do a perfection on that twisted end. So you basically have one long piece of leader. There's only one little knot there, and you obviously loop it into the welded loop. And then on the end, I'll put a perfection loop as well. I won't use a perfection loop on anything less than 15 pound. I find that it does break. But for Indo-Pacific permit, you can use a taper leader, as long as it's got about 15 pound on the tip, the point. Some people use segmented leaders, so obviously heavier butt section, all the way down to 15 pound. All of it works. And for permit, it doesn't really make a massive difference, because generally where you're hooking them, you've got a bit of clearance. They're not going to run into coral. You don't have to put the brakes on. Well, they can run into coral, but you have to be unlucky. But you don't have to put severe brakes on them immediately. You've got a little bit of leeway there. So you have got a bit of freedom on the tippet. But once you start going to all the other species like triggerfish and so forth, you have to be very careful of what you use.
Gotcha. So when you go to the triggers and the GTs, that's a different setup you're using there.
Yeah, well, so GTs is a very different model, very different experience in the sense that he's the beast. He breaks most things. If he doesn't straighten the hook, he has a go at cutting the fly line. So, we've obviously spent a lot of time over the years evolving the tackle for giant trevally. The difference is that people think that you have to fish a really hard drag for a giant trevally. Yes, you do, but you can't set it there. You've got to get it to that. So the way we do it is that we have a standard fly line. It must be a saltwater, a tropic fly line. Must have a proper core. Try and get it over 50-pound core at least. Definitely not a mono core. And if you can, try and stay away from sort of lines that have got too much texture on them, because a GT is when you're clearing, he's gonna cut holes in your fingers if you're dragging a textured line through your fingers.
Oh wow!
So it's just you want to have a line that's not too slippery on the fingers, not too oily, but not too much texture on it. So something with a nice big head, so you can place the fly quite quickly, and close to you, because 90% of the time you're not catching the giant trevally, full fly line castaway. You're catching them short, 3-4 rod lengths maximum, just putting the fly in front of him, and it's short because they appear out of nowhere, so it's quick and easy and getting the fly in as quick as possible to an area where you can see it. So we use general, quite bulky heads on the fly lines. I've started fishing an 11 weight, a lot more than a 12 weight. Obviously 11 weight's more forgiving on your arm. People who don't fish for giant trevally all the time, they'll find it much easier to cast an 11 weight than a 12 weight. And it's more important to hook the fish than to land every single one. So, and all the new modern 11 weight rods have all got plenty of backbone. You point that rod at the fish, you're going to land him. Obviously, you need a really good saltwater reel that has plenty of brake power. But the most important thing with the reel is that it mustn't have any frame flex when the drag is locked up. So a lot of people go, but the drag's great in this thing, but they don't understand that once that reel is locked up, the frame will flex and you'll get that drag. That's kind of grinding effect. So our fish Shilton reels, they're basic, simple. I can fix them with a Leatherman at any stage on the flats. So very, very easy for me to use and fix. And I have been fishing the same reels for almost 15 years. So for me, that's the way forward. A simple cork drag, just make sure the cork drags don't get wet, and if they get wet, you just open the reel up and wipe it on your shirt and put it back together again. So that kind of thing. Ables, the old Ables all work really, really well. Makos work really, really, really well. Just a really good Nautilus. Just a really good saltwater reel, something that got breaks. With that reel is that when you hook the giant trevally, you've got to have it set fairly tight, but not tight enough where he's going to eat and he's going to break you. So, because if you think you're casting to a fish, you're stripping the line in, he's coming, he's enticed, he's looking at you, his eyes are dilated, his mouth's open, his mouth's coming above the water edge, you're stripping as fast as you can, he eats the fly. You've got a lot of line around you, so that fish is going to start taking that line. The line's going to be going through your fingers. You're going to be trying to hold on as tight as possible, but at some stage that line is going to hit the reel. Now, if it hits the reel and your drag's tight, all that's going to happen is there's going to be a big explosion. Right. So what needs to happen is it needs to get on that reel with a nice sort of steady drag, but not too much. Let that niche sort of start speeding up, and obviously then let the reel start speeding up, and as he starts going, then you tighten him down. Yeah. Generally, giant trevally aren't fish that are going to do numerous long runs. You don't really break their power. You want to break their spirit. So in a sense, like it's slow pressure and sort of applying it in a sense where you get to a stage where you're flipping him. So as he's going away, you're applying, knowing where your breaking point is. And then at a stage that GT won't be able to You won't be able to keep going because you've slowed him down so much, and he'll do a flip. He'll probably do 2 or 3 other runs as well, and then he'll generally start looking for structure. That's when you got to be clever. That's when you got to try and get as close as possible to him, because he's going to look for any piece of coral, any sort of drop off, and he's going to go straight towards that. And if you can get close to him, you can omit that kind of thing. And then obviously it's just a little bit of a tug of war, and until you got him close by you. So yeah, the next important thing, obviously, with the fly line is the setup. So we don't use braided loops at all, factory loops or braided loops that have been manufactured or made, with glue and so forth. We believe in using waxed running line, braided running line. So it's like Cortland makes a really good one. It's waxed running line. It used to be called waxed running line. It's 50 pound. You loop it back into itself. So you create a double layer of the running line. And then what you do is you feed your fly line about 4 inches to 5 inches up inside that braided loop. And then what you do is use 2 nail knots at the back of the loop, the end of the loop, and you cinch it on that way. We don't put glue all over the braided loop. We only put it, if you want to put a little bit of glue, you can put it on the nail knots, because the reason why a braided loop is so good is because when it is stretched, it applies the grip to the whole part of the fly line that is underneath the braided loop versus just to one area. So what it does is it gives you a lot more flexibility with regards to applying more pressure. And actually, you'll see when you've done a braided loop nicely, you'll see that once you've caught a fish in it, it actually seats onto the fly line, creates all those little sort of ridges, and it seats on the fly line, and then it's really, really strong. From there, we then go to we fish anything from, say, 80 pound fluorocarbon to actually 130 pound monofilament. I use perfection loops. The most important thing with a perfection loop is in mono, it does slide, so you need to leave a tag. It doesn't need to be a long tag, so that it creates twist in the line. It needs to be a tag, and you need to seat those knots properly. I do the same thing on the other side with a fly. I do a 9-foot leader. Make sure those knots are seated properly, so it's 2 perfection loops either side. And then obviously the fly is very important, that you need to use a hook that's not going to straighten. So I use the various Gamakatsu hooks, the Trxstle 8.0 or 6.0, I think the SC15 2H as well, the top one hook in the fiber, the biggest one that you get. Really, really strong, straight point, really strong hooks don't open up. There's various other brands that are also really, really good. And then if you go back on the fly line, back towards the backing, I believe that the right thing to do, for giant trevally is fish 80-pound braid. I know it means that you lose a lot of capacity on the reel, but you have the ability to survive certain kinds of coral. So I'll put sort of 250 yards of 80-pound braid on the back, and then I join that. I do I do a bimini, and then I do a double surgeon knot. And then what I do is I join that to a braided loop on the backing the same way, braided loop on the back of the fly line the same as the other side of the fly line. And for me, that's the best way forward. It's pretty bulletproof.
That's it. You broke that down amazingly. That sounds perfect. So, so we got that. We got the setup. That was awesome. And I love you mentioned the nail knot. That's an old school knot that I love as well. What's the you mentioned the reels. What was it? What was the Shelton? How do you spell that reel? The first one you mentioned?
Shelton.
Oh, Shelton. Yeah.
Shelton. Yeah. SHILTON.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Perfect. And what's so the giant trevally? I'm not sure if you know the fish itself. It just looks so unique and cool, man. It's got this giant head compared to, say, like bonefish. Well, I guess permit, they have their own body morphology. But why the giant trevally? Why the giant? Is it just, do you know a little bit of that morphology? Why it's such a giant head and all the? Is it just for seeing and be the predator it is, obviously?
Yeah, I just think they obviously built to eat, so they built in a way that they need to be very hardy. they do believe that they are the super predator on the flats, so they will swim with sharks and with rays. And
oh wow, really? So they're the top. They're one of the top predators. They're even alongside a shark.
yeah, the biggest fish you catch will be on a 10-foot shark. So it's they feed. You have 2 or 3 fish sometimes on sharks. And the strange thing about it is that at different atolls, you get them feeding on different kinds of sharks. So, for instance, at Alphonse and St. Francois, we get them feeding with nurse sharks. Whereas in places like Cosmolino and a Stove and those kind of places, we don't get them feeding with nurse sharks. They feed with lemon sharks or with tiger sharks, guitar sharks, and so forth. So it really varies between the destinations. They love swimming with thornback rays. When you have a thornback ray swimming along, you'll get at least one GT sitting right in the back of that ray, and it's a symbiotic relationship where the ray sort of disturbs everything on the bottom, and little fish and crabs or whatever will swim away, and he'll dart off or she will dart off and eat it. So yeah, they do feed in packs. They feed on sharks. They feed on rays. They are feeding machines. The beauty about them is that when they see your fly and they want it, you can see immediately. They turn on, and you can't strip fast enough. They will eat it. And the reason why they're such a beautiful fish to catch is because you're fishing them on full floating lines. So you casting the fly at them, and when you're stripping, that fly, it doesn't matter how weighted it is, it's going to come to the surface. So you can imagine a giant trevally, a small giant trevally, its head's probably like a foot. But then you get the bigger giant trevally where, you're probably getting closer to 2 foot. And
wow.
So you can imagine their mouth is about 1.5 feet below the eyes. So in order to eat that fly, he's got to stick his eyes out the water and his head out the water.
Oh my God.
For that fly to be engulfed in his mouth. So it really is a crazy experience. When you're looking down that rod and you're looking straight at that fish because he's coming towards you to eat the fly, you're stripping as fast as you can, and he's opening his eyes. They dilated, his mouth's open, and all you got to do now is just pause slightly, just a little bit of a slower strip so you can just eat it, And
wow.
It's exciting.
That is amazing. So, and what is the fly you're using for the GTs?
Various. So we'll catch them from surface poppers, naps, sempers, clouses, brush flies. There's a lot of different patterns we use. There's all sorts of
not critical.
Yeah, no, it's all about size and color and profile, and it's also about belief. It's I'll fish very different flies to some of the other guys. The flies that are tie on their guest rods and so forth. So it's about preference. It's
yeah,
that's an important part. Just got to believe in the fly. That's all.
Believe in the fly. Nice. Well, I had another question, kind of a random one. I heard that you mentioned Rose Innes is your obviously your last name, but Stewart is also you have Stewart, right, in your family. That's your Scottish part of that.
Yeah. So both sides of my family are from Scotland, Stewart and Rose Innes. And the Rose Innes family came out to South Africa, with the 1820 settlers. So my father was born in South Africa. My mother's side is Stewart, and my grandfather was born in Rhodesia. Sorry, was born in Scotland, and then from there, after the Second World War, he moved out to Rhodesia, and my father went to Rhodesia to fight in the Rhodesian War, and my mother was a nurse, and my father was was injured, and they met in hospital. And
oh wow,
so that's the story. And then obviously Rhodesia fell apart, and everybody left, so we came back to South Africa.
And how do you spell the Stewart? I'm just curious because my last name is Stewart, and I don't know I know it's a Scottish. We have some Scottish ancestry. How do you spell your Stewart?
Stewart.
Yeah, it's spelled the same, so that's how mine's spelled. So maybe we might even have who knows, right? We might have some relative connection there. Who knows?
We probably have a few bricks that belong to us somewhere.
Exactly. Do you Scotland. Like drinking do you like go hitting a pub occasionally, a beer or two?
Or two, maybe a bit more.
Exactly. Okay, good. So you are, yeah, definitely. We're Scottish.
I'm Scottish deep down inside. Yeah, no, I enjoy drink. I like to socialize.
Good.
The thing is that I'm very fortunate that my business is a lot of my time is spent on Alphonse, and I'm working in the office in the evening, and I'm coming to the bar. I'm working in the office, and let me say that again. So I'm working in the office during the day. In the evening, I'm at the bar counter enjoying listening to the experiences of all the guys that have been fishing that day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So what's that? I mean, it's pretty much everybody, like you said, is coming there for fishing or just the natural beauty. Is that kind of, it's all revolves around that. And how long have you had when did you first create the company, the Alphonse, the actual, the hotel and that whole thing?
So we started Alphonse Fishing Company in September 2012, and we purchased Alphonse in August 2013, and that was basically that period there was when we started Alphonse Fishing Company. And then we only launched the leisure brand or the ecotourism brand called Blue Safari. That was done in July 2018. In 2018, more recent, yeah. But obviously, coming from a fly fishing background, but obviously learning a lot about the ecology and the wonderful nature out there. I wanted to try and put the two together. So around the world, there's obviously like a stigma towards fly fishing or fishing in a sense that they don't think that it's conservation orientated. So we're trying to spread the word in the sense that and everybody needs to explain that what we're doing is sustainable. We listen to the science. We've got a lot of different projects that are happening at any one time, and when the scientists or the conservationists say to us, "Hey, listen, this you can't do this," which has never happened because we don't put too much pressure on the destination. We are really responsible. But if they had to come to us and say, "Look, guys, you need to close seasons in Giant Trevally. Don't go into these kind of areas," we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. So over the years, what we've tried to do is create this, inform people and just sort of teach people in the sense that, fly fishing is great because it's a good revenue earner, but you can also protect the areas because we need the areas to be pristine. So all the funds which we raise and the conservation auctions that we go to and the trips we donate all go to foundations which we've created in the Seychelles, which are specific to each atoll and protect and monitor these destinations. But they don't, because that funding is coming from fly fishing, from guests that are coming fly fishing. Always was guests that are coming from fly fishing and has still been guests that are coming from fly fishing. But it doesn't only protect the marine environment, it protects the terrestrial environment as well. So in the past, we were doing more terrestrial work than marine work, but the revenue is being earned from marine-orientated activities. So now what we've got to a stage now where people that come to the island, there isn't a stigma that fly fishing or fishing is bad. Everyone around the bar, the divers, the conservationists, the people coming on ecotourism, or just the leisure-orientated guests all get on really well. It's like an amazing experience when you come to Alphonse Bar. Everyone's there. We have a bell ringer every single evening where we acknowledge great catches of the day, but also great achievements from the divers. Or some divers saw a hammerhead shark. We acknowledge that, and generally what it is the person or the activity guy in charge of the activities that day, or the head guide, would come up and would start the bell ringer, and would call the fisherman up and talk about the trigger fish he caught, or the giant trevally he caught, or the diver that went out and saw a hammerhead shark, or the guest that went snorkeling with sailfish, or the guest that helped hatching turtles, or the guest that did a beach cleanup, and all that kind of stuff. And it's all acknowledged with a ring of the bell. But what you also get is shot, either a shot of alcohol for the ones that want alcohol, or for the kids or whatever, they get a shot of fruit juice. And it's all a celebratory kind of evening, and that sort of breaks the ice for the evening. And everyone has a point of contact to be able to speak to anybody else. It's like a starting point of discussion.
Yeah.
And our destinations, we built them on the sense of trying to framework them around ski resorts, where in the evening you'll see your instructor in the bar, or you'll see those kind of things. So we encourage our staff, our dive masters, our conservationists, our guides, all to come to the bar in the evening to socialize with the guests and talk about the day. And that way you get people encouraged to do all sorts of other experiences. And that's why all our destinations are so great and everyone loves them. And we have 80% return rate. People might not come every year, but they'll come, every 2 or 3 years kind of thing.
Today's episode is sponsored by Reyr Gear, not only making telescoping fly rods, but rethinking the whole fly fishing idea of traveling better, lighter, and faster. This rod is a blend of traditional and Tenkara styles to make what you might call the perfect all-around fly rod. It travels well, fits in almost any bag, and because the rod packs within itself, you don't have to worry about damaging it. Reyr Gear also has folding nets, compact wading boots, and the telescoping rod puts the perfect package together where you always have it on at all times. Reyr Gear is definitely innovating in fly fishing to help hikers, bikers, multi-sport enthusiasts, and everybody out there who wants a new adventure to get on the water faster. You can head over to reyrgear.com right now to check it out and take a look at this rod. You got to, if nothing else, click over there and take a look at what this thing looks like. A rod without guides is definitely unique. That's Reyr Gear, Reyr gear.com. And that's it. You've created this experience. Obviously, these trips, definitely, especially for somebody coming across from, say, the U.S., you got to do a lot of traveling to get there. What does that look like for your clients? Is it a good chunk of more U.S. folks now than there used to be, or how's that look?
Yeah, we've always been really strong in the US, where it's about 40% of our guests come from the US, and most of those guests are all fly fishing orientated. A lot of our other guests all coming, from the UK and Europe and those kind of places. There are a lot of fly fishermen, but a lot of them are also leisure orientated because it's a lot easier for them to go to, Seychelles, than American. They had to come to Seychelles to do sort of leisure orientated stuff. So, but we do get a lot of Americans coming out to do the conservation stuff and to see what we got out at these destinations because they're obviously so pristine and wild. But yeah, I mean, it's hopefully going to, the American market's going to obviously grow for us. We find the American market very easy because generally they're well traveled, so and they do appreciate. When they come to a destination like ours, they do appreciate what's there because they've seen so many other destinations which don't have it. So Americans are generally great travelers. It's we're learning all the time. So we hope that the Americans keep coming. Obviously it is a long way to get out there, but once they're there, it's they're in heaven. But we do encourage guests that are coming out for a week's fly fishing to come out for a little bit longer. If you had to go to any of our destinations other than Alphonse, for instance, like a Stove, Farquhar, Cosmolino, Poivre, St. Joe's, the Amarantes, any of those destinations, all those flights come via Alphonse. So you can fly into Alphonse and spend 2 or 3 days before and rest and do a bit of fly fishing and get your eye in and so forth, and then move on for your weekly package at one of the other destinations, or just come for a 2-week or 10-day trip to Alphonse. So that's the beauty about it, is that it's not, a lot of fishing packages around the world, you're sort of limited by your time frame. It's either got to be a week or 2 weeks, whereas it doesn't with us. It can be 3 days. It can be up to as long as you want. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is really cool. So, and it sounds like, a lot of the people that are coming there are people that have been, traveling around, so they know it's not their first saltwater trip necessarily. They've been around, and this is like this is obviously a bucket list trip for a lot of people. But then once they get there, they come back as well. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's everyone. It's a funny saying where everyone says the trip of a lifetime every year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so I'm curious on you mentioned the conservation, because that is a key part of it. And one of the struggles, I would imagine, you hear about some of these things, right, especially out in the ocean, where you guys are doing a great job protecting the species, but then you've got some other group or industry or something that's hammering it. Do you see that as a problem out there, or do you guys feel like you're able to really protect all the atolls out there? Yeah,
so I mean, it's sad to say, but conventional angling is a downer for the flats fishing. If you have someone who rocks up, or a group of guys in a yacht, and they casting conventional plugs across the surface of the flats, they're going to entice every single giant trevally in the area for a mile. And one yacht fishing an atoll for a week will catch as many GT as we catch in 3 months. So you can't have that kind of fishing. These places have to be extremely pristine to have giant trevally coming onto the flats. So if you're having boats rock up and doing conventional fishing in shallow water, it's going to ruin it for everybody. So we've managed to get a little bit more protection with regards to that. So the IDC, which is a government organization which manages all the outer atolls, they obviously help us, trying to not allow boats to come into these kind of places, inside the lagoons and so forth. So all the conventional fishing is done away from the reef. It's all done in the deep water. It's all done for pelagics. So
Gotcha.
the giant trevally are protected. Whereas there are destinations obviously closer to Mahe, where conventional guys go out there, and there's obviously way less giant trevally there because there's too much conventional fishing. But we're lucky because our destinations are, it's expensive to get them because, you're obviously going to have to fly for a decent hour. And it's a little bit further out than what your general yacht can do and get out there. So that offers a lot of protection. But the beauty is now as well is that the Marine Protected Areas Act is now being put in place in the Seychelles, where there's marine protected areas where it disallows that kind of fishing and offers a lot more protection for the fishery on a more sustainable basis, which is fly fishing orientated with rod limits.
And what would be, you mentioned some foundation, what would be one foundation where people could kind of check out and maybe support them or check them out more, or some of the folks doing the conservation work?
Yeah, so you can go on a website, Alphonse Fishing Company, or Blue Safari Seychelles, or Alphonse Island, and you'll see that there's some conservation work there. The conservation work that we're doing, the foundations, the names are the same as the atoll. So, for instance, for Alphonse Island and St. Francois and Bijoutier, which is the Alphonse group, we have the Alphonse Foundation. For Cosmolido and Estove, we have the Cosmolido Estove Foundation. And those are the foundations that we sort of generate the income and the donations. And then what we do is we have a tri-party agreement with the Island Conservation Society, and they do all our conservation work. We give them the funds. We allocate what kind of conservation work we would like to happen, and then they carry it out for us.
They do it. That sounds like a good partnership. Right on. What is the time-wise? If somebody, this is obviously a big trip. If somebody was planning something, what would be a good time? And how far out do you have to plan this sort of trip? When should we be coming? If you're talking permit and or GTs.
Yeah, so our best time of year weather-wise starts around October and ends now in May. The rest of the time, the southeast wind generally picks up a little bit and starts blowing. We hibernate all our destinations except for Alphonse from May all the way until August. And then the destinations vary in when we open them up again for the season. Alphonse Island, you can fish all year round. But we just limit the rods. So we like to create a buffer period where we have the flats being nice and rested, so that when the season comes about, the fish have been rested, and it's like walking onto a flat that's never been fished before, kind of thing. But funny enough is that people believe that the off season rejuvenates the fishery, but it doesn't really. So you can start the beginning of the season and you expect to be like fish everywhere and cast for cast kind of thing. You still have to catch them. Generally the fishing, the peaks in the fishing is according to the weather, according to the tides. There's various different scenarios that come into play. If you think, I'm going to go to an atoll and no one's ever fished it before and I'm going to catch bucket loads. It doesn't happen. Yeah. It doesn't happen like that. You've still got to get the stars to align. You've still got to be there when the tides are right and when the weather's right and when the fish are in the right areas and so forth. So even though the Seychelles is a guarantee you're going to catch fish, you're going to catch a lot of them. Some weeks are obviously better than others.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. It sounds like a lot of these places with fishing, it's like we said earlier, it's the fishing is obviously amazing, but it's the whole everything. It's the experience. Somebody traveling there, just being out in that area, seeing the creatures and animals would be sweet. So give me a rough on cost-wise, just so somebody knows. If they wanted to book, say they're going to book a week trip to, Cosmopolitan or whatever for, say, permit or GTs, what does that look like over there?
Yeah, so I mean, our product ranges from about $10,000 all the way up to about $15,000 or $16,000, depending on the destination. So generally, the price point increases according to the distance of the flight. So the flights are operated by the government, independent contractor, and that's how they sort of limit.
So if you came over from the U.S., if you came over the U.S., you would fly into where do you fly in? Like, where does the international? Where do you fly in there?
To Mahe Island, which is the main island. It's a big island, and then from there, it's we have Beechcraft 1900, which can seat 16 people, a nice pressurized plane that can fly above the weather. And our closest destination is with the landing strip is Alphonse, and then from there it's an hour. 2 Alphonse is an hour. Then all the other destinations are an hour more. Cosmopolitan and Stove it's a 2 hour flying. Farquhar is another half an hour, 45 minutes. So Farquhar in total is about an hour 45, whereas Cosmopolitan and Stove are about 2 hours 15 minutes. But all our flights come via Alphonse. So we'll always fly the plane, an hour flight, land in Alphonse, depending on what time of day it is. You'll either have a snack or you'll have a toilet break and so forth. So a lot of people will jump off at Alphonse, and some people will jump on at Alphonse, and then we move on to the next destination and land there.
Gotcha. So that's an hour. So that's amazing. Yeah, it gives us a perspective if you're talking 1-2 hours air flight. I mean, this is a huge, gigantic area. What is this must be, mileage-wise, do you have any idea how many miles it is between this whole area that you guys work in?
Yeah, so between Mahe and Alphonse is about 200 miles, a little bit more than 200 miles. Then between Alphonse and Farquhar is about another 200 miles, there and thereabouts. Cosmopolitan is a little bit further, probably like another 250 miles. So, and a Stove and Cosmopolitan are very close together. So it's a long way out. You're closer to Madagascar than you are to Seychelles, to Mahe. And that's why these destinations are so pristine, because they're so far away, so difficult to get to, and so expensive to get to. It's just the fact that we are able to do back-to-back trips and supplement the trips with leisure, and we're able to get the costing to where it is.
Yeah, that's it. No, and it's totally, for this sort of trip, price isn't really the issue here. You know what I mean? It's like you said, once a lifetime trip, every year people find the money, that's the great thing.
Yeah. Also you got to understand is that, for instance, let me give you explanation. So Cosmopolitan is 5 days by barge. So if you want to send one Coke can out on a boat, it'll take 5 days to get to Cosmopolitan by sea. And we have to use massive boats which we can fit 10 or 12 containers on, because we obviously having to take a large amount of provisions out. We do 4 barges out to Cosmopolitan in a season in 7 months. So just to keep the camp running, obviously, you've got to generate electricity. You've got to make water. You've got to obviously have all your dry supplies. You've got to. There's so many different things. You've got to move boats around, spares. All those kind of things. So it's a massive sort of moving organization, logistic wise. So and the Seychelles isn't cheap. It's just logistically it's difficult.
Yeah, that's it. That's cool. And what about another random one here? I remember a while back you were hearing a lot about these, the pirates out there and things like that. Is that something you've ever had any interactions with, or is that an issue out in that part of the world still?
Yeah, look, piracy is not existing in the Seychelles waters. I don't even know if there's any more of it in the Gulf of Aden, which is near Somalia. I'm not sure if it's ongoing at all. It was basically sorted it out. I think the only place that there's now piracy, or a little bit of piracy, is in Indonesia, or on the east coast, on the west coast of Africa, up closer to below Morocco, those places.
Gotcha.
But there's no piracy in the Seychelles. I was unfortunately part of the business which I started many years ago, which I sold out of in 2012. We actually did all the pioneering of the outer islands and destinations, and we that business came to abrupt halt when we actually had one of our boats taken by pirates. So,
oh wow,
my
you were on it?
No, I was not on it. We didn't have the guests on board either. The guests had been dropped off 5 hours before. But they took the boat and they took the crew of 8, and they took them and they had the crew for 79 days in Somalia. Yeah. They had the crew for 79 days in Somalia, and they eventually burnt the ship, and they closed our business. But then, it was kind of, it was a terrible thing to happen, but it also set a lot of other things in play where, liveaboards aren't the best things for destinations because you can't have a permanent presence there. You especially in Africa, east coast of Africa, boats move around. People can get to these atolls. People can fish them and take turtles and stuff without anybody even knowing. So you've got to have a presence at the atolls and all year presence. So you can protect these destinations. So by having a lodge that you operate for, call it 7 months of the year, and then you have nobody there except your skeleton crew and your rangers and your conservationists, and you're able to protect these destinations. So for me, it was a migration after having the piracy and seeing the effect of liveaboards and seeing the effect of commercial fishing, and my decision was that I had to try and explain to the government that you have to have low impact destinations, lodges with high income and the ability to protect these destinations. Show people and teach them what these destinations are about and how unique they are. Yeah. And by doing that, they're gonna contribute, and you're gonna be able to protect them and protect them for longevity through sustainable use, and drive all the commercial fishing away, or illegal fishing, or illegal turtle catching, sharking, finning, all that kind of stuff. And through that, all these destinations have been able to be protected, and they're rejuvenated. They're getting better all the time. Destinations, the fish are there. The fish are improving. For instance, like the bonefish populations at St. Francois are more healthy than they've ever been. That's Alphonse and St. Francois, more healthy than they've ever been. The permit fishery is better than it's ever been. The GG population is as good as it's ever been. So it's an amazing sort of how can I say, like, evolvement, that things that how things have evolved.
Exactly. And you've been right in the middle. So you've been in the middle of this thing the whole time. I mean, other than you've built this thing along with, who else is out there? I know you hear a lot about Jako, right? Because he's out there a lot. What does your crew look like? Your community of guides? Is this people local, or what's that look like?
Yeah, so we try and encourage as many local guides as possible. They're very good. We have some incredibly good local guides. Some of the guides have been guiding with us for like 16, 17 years. So we've got a really good local content of guides, and they're really good guys. But we also, we obviously have expats that come in and do guiding stints. It's generally hard to keep people on the outer islands. So it's hard to keep, people for long periods of time. So you do get the guide teams moving around. But what we try and do is we try and encourage our guys to stay by moving them from destination to destination. And then they keep enthusiastic about their destination. So they'll spend sort of 5 weeks at St. Francois and Alphonse. Then they'll spend like 3-4 weeks in the Stove and 5 weeks at Cosmo. Then a couple of weeks at Farquhar. And then from Farquhar, maybe do like 2 or 3 trips on the liveaboard to the Amarantes. So it kind of keeps them fresh and excited. Jako, he actually cut his teeth with us in the early days. Great story. I mean, I'd been guiding in Russia, and I came back for a break, and I met Jako as a youngster at one of our sort of coastal towns, a place called Kids Beach, and met him out of the blue, and he asked me, look, how do I get into fly fishing? So I said to him, look, the most important thing is obviously get something behind your name with regards to university. And when you've done that, shoot over to the UK, try and get a job at Follows of Pall Mall in a fly shop, learn as much as you can about all the different destinations. And then when you've done that for 2 years, give me a call and I'll get you a guiding stint.
Nice.
And almost the day he called me and said, Keith, I've done all of that. I want to come guide. So his first day of guiding was he was thrown on the flats. We were at Cosmolito. He was pointed in the right direction. He was given a radio, and he said, and I said, there's your three clients for the day, and make it happen. So Yako's obviously a talented guy. He's got a lot of sense between his two eyes. And he's got the ability to figure things out. And he evolved, and he spent many years with us guiding in the Seychelles. Yeah, and he's a very close friend of mine, and we do a lot of fishing together still. And he comes out to Seychelles for many weeks every year, and he hosts groups and so forth. So yeah, he's still a part. Although he doesn't work for us, he's still an integral part of our family.
That's right. Yeah, he actually he ended up grew up, I think, near. Well, I'm not sure how close he is to you, but now lives in actually the U.S. down in Texas. I think is where he moved last I heard. Right.
Yeah, he's guiding out in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. No, that's really awesome. I think that. I think it sounds like you guys have an amazing program. Just like you hear the name out there. Obviously, I'm glad we had a chance to shed some light on it today. So, now that it's May, what's that look like now? The next 6 months or whatever that is this season, where you're not going to be fishing as much. What takes up your time now?
Yeah, so now we obviously planning for next season. So it's getting all the provisions sorted out, rebuilding boats, skiffs, engines, refurbishing accommodation. Making sure that the team's going away and getting well rested as well. So doing a little bit of a rotation of the teams. It's
do you get a break in there? Do you take it out? I mean, you're on vacation all the time because you live out there, but do you ever go somewhere to kind of get a vacation, your own vacation?
Yeah, I do. So this year, I'm very fortunate in the fact that I'm going with a very good friend of mine out to the Alta River in Norway, which is it's a very prestigious experience. Many people have dreamt about it for, like I have for years, and haven't been able to get the opportunity to go there. You can't just rock up and go and fish, and you can't really even buy a rod to go and fish.
Right. So for Atlantic salmon.
For Atlantic salmon, big Atlantic salmon, the biggest in the world.
Yeah, the biggest in the world.
It's like there's a saying, it's dead man's shoes. So there's basically there's 5 weeks there's a syndicate of 5 weeks where people have purchased the syndicate rods. They pay an astronomical amount of money to be able to go and fish during that period. And then for the rest of that period, there's a lottery. So you have to enter into the lottery job to try and win a day's fishing on the Alta. So if you haven't been lucky enough to get an invite of someone that's got a syndicate rod, which you share, not one person doesn't fish a rod. It's always a shared rod. So two people take turns in fishing that rod. It's very difficult to go and fish the destination. So it's been a lifetime dream for me, obviously, because I did guide on the Pinoy River for 4 years, where I was the head guide when I was doing back-to-back seasons with Seychelles. So Atlantic salmon fishing is really, really, truly ingrained in me. I love, not even catching a fish. I love, walking the riverbed and casting a spey rod all day long. And it really is. It's so different to what I do for work.
Yeah.
When I'm walking in the flats in the Seychelles and I'm holding a rod, I don't find that I fish much. I enjoy it more taking my son out and watching him fish. For instance, the last 3 or 4 times I've been on the flats, I haven't even taken a rod with me. I've just been with my son and watch him catching, and my wife watching them catch bonefish and whatever comes their way. So for me, there's always that sense that it's still work. You almost a sense that you've caught enough fish in the Seychelles, you kind of feel guilty, and now it's time to pass the baton, or to rather just enjoy the experience of walking in the flats. So, salmon fishing is so different. Salmon or steelhead fishing is so different that you get on the river and you feel, now I can unwind and enjoy it.
Yeah, that is great. What is that on the? And I'm just curious because you mentioned the number before. So those rods where people are buying, what does that cost? What's that price tag look like for those the high end rods?
I've got no idea. It was priceless. The guys.
Yeah, you can't even get it. You literally can't even get it.
The guys hold on to them until it gets passed on and someone wants to sell it.
Oh,
too old to fish it.
Right. Yeah, you can't even get it. So it's a lottery. It's literally just a lottery system for anybody, and even that's still a lottery.
Yeah, so I mean, those rods are obviously syndicated, and they passed on to generations, or they sold on, and they're snapped up immediately.
Oh yeah,
and then all the other, because basically those rods will be fishing during the night time because it's 24 hours of daylight, and it's better fishing in the evenings or the nights because the fish bite better. The daytime period is generally offered to the lotteries, and so you put money into the lottery, and it's a lottery, and someone wins is lucky enough to win a day's fishing on the Alta, and obviously divided by the amount of lottery tickets that I bought. I've bought lottery tickets and I've never won. So
that's right. That's the problem with the lottery is that well, I guess depending on your lottery, but lottery is usually not a good investment, right? Usually you don't have a good shot at winning. I guess it depends on the odds, but this has been good, Keith. I appreciate definitely digging into this today. We'll send everybody out to alphonsefishingco.com if they want to connect and maybe find out more about getting a trip with you. I appreciate you taking the time today and shedding some light on all this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if anyone wants to send me any questions or to send me a hi on my Instagram, I'm Keith Rosinus Fly Fishing. You can just send me a message there or send me an email on keith@alphonsefishingco.com. I'm happy to answer any questions, even if it's just about tackle. I'm happy to chat. I enjoy chatting with everybody, and hopefully we'll see you on the water somewhere. If it's not in the Seychelles, maybe on a river somewhere. But tight lines and good luck out there.
So there it is. wetflyswing.com/335. 335. We'll get you all the links, the show notes, and whatever Dom threw in there, a little bonus. You can check it out. Quick listener shout out before we get out of here. Tim Martin out of Humboldt County sent me an email recently. And he just found the show actually back in May, and he's been binging the content and loving it. Just want to say thanks for all the support, Tim. I appreciate you for taking a moment to say thanks. If you want to connect with me and potentially get a shout out here, you can send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. It's probably the easiest way, or you can connect with me on social, and I will definitely get to your email personally as I get to it. I would love to hear from you and try to put together an episode that makes sense for you. One last one before we get out here, Togen's Trivia Night. Head over to wetflyswing.com/trivia to enter your email and get entered in to get some fly tying swag from Togen's. They're sending these out. We're doing these on a regular basis, so it's a chance to get that free swag, and we're going to be announcing the next winner on an upcoming snippet episode, so stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you have a good afternoon, good evening, or good morning wherever you're at, and looking forward to catching up with you online or on the water.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.